I refused to have kids with my dying boyfriend because he wouldn't marry me. Now he's having a baby with someone else. I, 31F, have been with my boyfriend, 33M, for 7 years. We met in our mid-20s when we were both still figuring out what we wanted from life. At the time, we had endless conversations about what the future might look like: marriage, kids, a house somewhere near a good school district, even a dog. He told me he wanted to be a dad someday, that it was one of his biggest dreams, and that family meant everything to him. I told him I liked the idea of having kids, but that it wasn't the defining goal of my life. If I became a mom, I thought I'd be a good one. But I've always been pretty content with myself and the life I've built. So I knew I could also be happy without children. One thing I made crystal clear from the very beginning was that I would never have kids with someone unless we were married. That's not a negotiable value for me. I understand a lot of people feel differently, and that's fine, but for me, it comes down to a mix of personal values and practical concerns. To be honest, I've always found it a little odd how normalized it is to have children without a formal legal commitment. Raising children is one of the hardest and most intense things two people can do together. It's not temporary, and it's not reversible. To me, if someone doesn't want to commit to me as a life partner in a binding, legal way, I'm not going to go and have children with them. That would be asking me to take on a far greater burden without even a basic commitment in place. I told my boyfriend this within the first year of dating. We weren't planning kids anytime soon, but I thought it was important to be upfront. He said he understood and respected that, and we didn't talk about it much after that because, frankly, we were focused on other things: finishing school, launching our careers, moving in together, traveling a bit. As the years went by, I started to notice that while we talked about one day, it never seemed to get any closer. We moved in together after 3 years, and I started to feel like maybe a proposal was coming. My birthday passed. Our anniversary passed. Then another year and another. Sometimes I'd gently bring it up, not in a nagging way, I hope, but just kind of testing the waters. His response was always something like, "We're great the way we are," or "Marriage is just a piece of paper." I'd roll with it for a bit, but it bothered me. Eventually, I stopped asking. I figured he just wasn't the type to get married, or maybe I wasn't the one he could picture doing that with. I had moments of doubt, wondering whether I was being strung along, but I also loved him, and our life was comfortable. We got along well, rarely fought, had great chemistry, and supported each other. So I didn't rock the boat too hard. And for the record, I never gave him an ultimatum. I've never been that kind of person. But lately, things have shifted. A few months ago, we went to a friend's baby shower. On the way home, he was really quiet. A week later, he brought up the idea of us having kids. Not in the distant someday way, but soon. He said he felt like we were ready, that we had stable jobs, a good home, and enough savings to start trying. At first, I thought he was joking, but he was serious. And suddenly, it hit me like a brick wall. This man still didn't want to get married, but he wanted to jump straight to having children. I asked him, "Wait, are you saying you want kids now without getting married?" He said yes. That's where everything started unraveling. Because I thought we'd had this conversation years ago. I thought it was settled. And suddenly, he was acting like this was a brand new idea. I calmly told him that I couldn't do that I wasn't going to be a mother to anyone's children unless I was also their wife. I explained, again, that I wasn't doing it to pressure him, but because it went against everything I believed in, and not just in a moral sense. I also didn't want to risk raising a child in a situation that lacked legal clarity or long-term commitment. His response shocked me. He didn't try to have a dialogue about it. He got defensive immediately. He said things like, "You're punishing me because I don't want to sign a piece of paper," and "Why are you making everything conditional?" I tried to explain that marriage, for me, isn't just a piece of paper. It's a framework. It's a mutual promise of long-term partnership, and without that, I wasn't willing to bring children into the world. I also told him very clearly that if he doesn't want to get married, that's okay. But in that case, we can't have kids, can't buy a house together, and shouldn't tangle our finances deeply. I'm not going to set myself up to be legally vulnerable in the event that things don't work out, especially not while raising a child. I told him we can continue to love each other and enjoy life as is, or we can each find someone else whose values align better. That was a week ago. He hasn't been the same since. After that initial conversation, things between us changed. Not in a loud, dramatic, door-slamming way, but in that cold, quiet sort of way where you can feel the space between two people widening, even when they're sitting on the same couch. He was clearly upset, but instead of talking about it directly, he started acting different, distant, passive-aggressive. He made little jabs like, not everyone needs a wedding ring to prove they love someone, or guess I'll die alone then. I tried to ignore them at first, hoping he'd cool off and come around to a more open conversation. But the jabs kept coming. They stung, not because he was trying to hurt me, but because I could tell he truly didn't understand where I was coming from. Or worse, didn't want to. Eventually, I told him, if you're going to be angry with me, can we just talk about it instead of pretending everything's fine while throwing shade? He finally admitted that he felt betrayed, that he thought I was changing the rules on him. That stopped me in my tracks. I asked him how I'd changed anything. I reminded him, again, that I had always said I wouldn't have children without being married, that I'd made it clear from the beginning, that I wasn't moving the goalpost. I was just standing firm where I'd always been. He said he didn't think I'd actually mean it, that he thought I'd soften over time, that once we were settled and happy, the idea of marriage would feel outdated or unnecessary. And I think that hurt more than anything, that he just assumed I'd compromise on something so central to my values, while he refused to budge even a little on his own. I told him it wasn't about being old-fashioned. It was about trust, about building something with a solid foundation, about having protections in place for me, for him, and especially for any child we might bring into the world. I said that raising a kid is infinitely more binding than getting married, and that if he's not willing to commit to me in marriage, why should I believe he'd stay committed as a co-parent? That didn't go over well. He accused me of making everything transactional, that love shouldn't require a contract, that plenty of people raise kids without getting married and do just fine, that I was putting paperwork above our actual relationship. I disagreed. I told him it wasn't about the paperwork. It was about structure, safety, shared responsibility. It's about knowing that if something happens, emotionally, financially, legally, we're both protected, that our child would be protected, that I wouldn't be left scrambling if we broke up and suddenly had to navigate custody and child support without any legal framework holding us together. He rolled his eyes, said I was being dramatic, that if we broke up, we'd figure it out like adults. But the thing is, I've seen enough to know how naive that is. I've watched friends go through breakups with children involved, without ever being married. It's brutal, messy, complicated. Courts don't make things easier when you're unmarried parents. And if I'm going to go through pregnancy, childbirth, and all that comes after, I need to know we've both committed fully, legally, and emotionally to this life together. That's when he dropped the bomb. He told me he didn't believe in marriage, not just with me, but in general. That he's seen too many men get destroyed in divorces, lose their houses, access to their kids, their money. That he's not willing to take that risk, even if he loves me. I sat there in silence, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I was absorbing the weight of that statement. If he truly believes marriage is inherently dangerous to him, then how could he ever see me as a partner? How could he love me and simultaneously believe I might one day screw him over? I asked him very calmly, do you think I would do that to you? Destroy you in a divorce? He looked away and didn't answer. And in that silence, I felt a fracture form. I told him I wasn't going to get married just so he could check a box and get kids out of the deal. That if he ever proposes to me, it needs to be because he actually wants to marry me, not because it's a transaction for children. I said, very plainly, if you don't believe in marriage, I respect that. But then I won't be having your children. That's not punishment. That's me sticking to my values. He got angry, really angry. He said I was putting him in an impossible position, that he doesn't have time to waste. And that's when he brought up something I tried not to think about. He has a medical condition. I won't go into detail because it's his private business, but it's serious and it affects his life expectancy. It's not like he's going to die tomorrow, but the odds of him living a long life are lower than average. And he's terrified that if we don't have kids soon, he'll miss their entire lives, that he won't get to see them grow up or graduate or get married themselves. Hearing that broke my heart, not because I didn't already know it, but because he was using it as leverage. He said that if I don't want kids with him now, I'm essentially taking away his last chance to be a father, that I'm choosing a ring over real life, that I'm prioritizing something symbolic over something real and meaningful. But that's where I fundamentally disagree. To me, marriage isn't symbolic, it's foundational. And the fact that he doesn't see it that way tells me we're on entirely different pages. I told him, gently but firmly, if you need to be a father right now, and you can't accept marriage as part of that journey, then maybe I'm not the person for you. And maybe that hurts, but it's better than lying to ourselves and ending up in a painful situation. He looked devastated, truly devastated, and I hated seeing that. But I didn't back down. Now he's been sleeping on the couch, barely talking to me, and I feel like I'm the villain in his eyes. It's been a few days since our last major conversation, the one where I told him, plainly, that I wouldn't be having children outside of marriage, and he told me that I was robbing him of his dream of fatherhood. The silence between us has only grown heavier since then. He's still sleeping on the couch. He doesn't slam doors or yell anymore. He's gone quiet in a way that's almost worse. He walks around like a man grieving something, like he's already mourning a life that's slipping out of his hands. And I feel it too. The distance, the heartbreak, the knowing that we're both still here, still in this relationship, but fundamentally at odds with something we can't negotiate our way through. And I've been thinking a lot. I've replayed every conversation we've ever had about marriage, children, our future. I've been trying to understand. Was I unclear? Did I not emphasize enough? Did I let things get too comfortable, too ambiguous, too modern for my own values to hold weight anymore? But every time I circle back to those early conversations, I land on the same truth. I was honest from the start. This is a new boundary. It's not a surprise condition. I didn't move the goalpost. I just assumed, wrongly, maybe, that someone who wanted to build a life with me would either share my values, or at least take them seriously enough to meet me halfway. I understand that marriage is a loaded topic for a lot of people. I've seen horror stories too. I know that divorce can be messy and that men, especially in some legal systems, can come out of it feeling broken emotionally and financially. But here's the thing. I am not those people. Our relationship is not a statistic. And if my boyfriend thinks that I'm the kind of woman who would destroy him in a divorce, that says more about how little he trusts me than how much he loves me. And that hurts. Deeply. Because if you love someone, really love them, don't you want to show up fully? Don't you want to make that commitment? Not just in your heart, but in your actions? Don't you want to create something sturdy and safe? Not just for the two of you, but for the family you claim want to build? For me, marriage is not about the dress or the party or the title of wife. It's about standing up in front of the people you care about and saying, this is my person. I choose them. We're building this life together. And I'm not walking away when things get hard. I need that before I bring children into the picture. I need to know that when I'm exhausted at 3 a.m. and there's a screaming baby in the next room, I'm doing this with someone who didn't just opt in emotionally, but who signed up legally, spiritually, completely. Otherwise, I feel like I'm gambling with my future, and with the future of a child who never asked to be part of this argument. Maybe that's old-fashioned. Maybe Reddit will roast me for demanding a ring before I do what plenty of women do without one. But to me, this isn't about jewelry. It's about safety. It's about clarity. It's about not raising a child with someone who's already signaling that they can't commit to me on the most basic level. And honestly, I'm scared, not of being alone or missing out on motherhood. I'm okay either way, but of waking up 10 years from now with a child, a mortgage, and no legal protections. Of being the default parent. Of having no real claim to shared assets if something goes wrong. Of having to go to court just to get what should have been agreed upon from the beginning. So I stand by what I said. If he doesn't believe in marriage, then he doesn't believe in building a life the way I need it to be built. And if he doesn't want to marry me because he's scared, then that's okay. But I won't bend this one rule, not even for him, not even for love. He says that's me being rigid. I say that's me having boundaries. And it kills me that someone who knows me so well, who has shared 7 years of life with me, can't see the difference. But here's what really threw me. Last night, in a rare moment of vulnerability, he admitted that he thought I would change my mind eventually. That deep down, he thought time would soften me, and that when push came to shove, I'd give in because I loved him too much to lose him. He confessed that he never truly believed I would hold the line. That confession cut deeper than any of his previous accusations. Because it wasn't just a lack of alignment, it was a lack of respect. He didn't take my values seriously. He gambled on me folding. And now he's acting blindsided because I didn't. So now I'm here, stuck between heartbreak and clarity. On one hand, I love this man. He's been my partner, my teammate, my best friend. We've built something real over 7 years. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm finally seeing the limits of what we can be to each other. And it's not because we don't love each other. It's because we love in fundamentally different ways. I want to build a home with someone who doesn't just want me, but who chooses me publicly, legally, wholeheartedly. And I want any children I might have to come into a world that was built on that foundation. So yes, I've drawn a hard line. And now we're both standing on opposite sides of it, wondering what comes next. So here I am, sitting alone at our kitchen table while my boyfriend, my partner of 7 years, sleeps on the couch. The silence has become our third roommate. It creeps in at dinner, stretches between us when we pass each other in the hallway, and hums loudly when I lie awake at night wondering how we got here. We haven't said much in the past couple of days. Not because there's nothing to say, but because we both know the next conversation will likely be the last. I don't think either of us wants it to end, but it's become painfully clear that we're standing on two different cliffs, staring across a chasm we can't seem to bridge. I've spent the past week thinking hard about my values, about what I'm willing to compromise on, and about what kind of future I want to live in. And also about love, what it really means. Because despite everything, I still love him. That hasn't changed. But love alone has never been a problem. The problem is this: he wants children now. He feels the weight of time pressing down on him. His illness, something we've both tried to live around without letting it define us, is now steering his decisions. He wants to become a father before it's too late, before the disease takes too much from him, before he fades into the background of his own child's life. And that urgency is real. I don't doubt that his desperation is coming from a deeply human, deeply vulnerable place. But that same urgency is pushing him to demand something of me that I've already said no to, something that I will not and cannot do. He wants me to give him a child without a commitment. He wants me to compromise on the very foundation of what I believe makes a family strong. And when I refuse, he calls it punishment. But this isn't punishment. This is me honoring myself. I've been told my whole life that women are supposed to bend, that we're supposed to nurture, accommodate, absorb, that a good woman supports her man, even if it means giving up parts of herself. And for years, I did that in small ways, quietly shifting my expectations, hoping love would eventually lead us to the same path. But on this, I won't bend, because if I do, I'll resent him. I know myself well enough to say that. I'll carry the weight of that compromise in my body, in my bones, in my heart. I'll look at our child, and instead of feeling joy, I'll remember the feeling of surrender. And that's not fair to the child, or to me, or to him. A child deserves to be born into a space of mutual trust, shared values, and intentional commitment, not into a relationship held together by hope and old promises. So I did something hard today. I sat him down and told him that I couldn't be the mother of his children. Not now. Not without marriage. Not like this. I told him I wasn't angry with him. I wasn't judging him for his beliefs. But I was done pretending that we could keep living in this limbo, that one of us wouldn't eventually break under the weight of this decision. He didn't say much, just looked at me with a kind of tired sadness I haven't seen before, like something inside him finally gave up. Then he said the one thing I wasn't expecting. "I really thought you'd change your mind." It was quiet, almost whispered, like a confession, and it confirmed what I'd already suspected. He'd never taken my boundaries seriously. Not fully. He thought love would override it. He thought I'd love him enough to erase myself. But I can't, and I won't. We talked for a while, calmly, honestly, like people who know the end is near, but still respect each other enough not to destroy what's left. I told him that if he wants to be a father, he should go find someone who shares his values, someone who's okay having children outside of marriage. He deserves that. Just like I deserve someone who looks at me and thinks, "Of course I want to marry you. You're my person." He asked me if I was leaving him. I said I didn't know, that I'm not packing a bag tonight or storming out. But I can't keep living in a relationship where my most fundamental values are ignored, or worse, treated like conditions to be gotten around. We're taking space now. Real space. He's staying with a friend for a while. I've taken time off work to just breathe, to grieve what we've lost, to accept that even deep love doesn't always lead to the same future. And I've asked myself, over and over, AIDA? Update. It's been just over 3 months since I posted about my decision not to have children with my boyfriend unless we were married, and I wanted to come back and give you all an update, especially since so many of you offered kind, thoughtful, and honest feedback. Some of the responses were tough to read, but I genuinely appreciated the perspectives. So here's what's happened. After our final conversation, he moved out. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no slamming doors. Just a quiet acceptance that we'd reached the end of our road. I helped him pack some of his things, and we hugged before he left. I cried for hours afterward. Not because I regretted anything, but because 7 years of my life had just shifted into the past. You don't spend that much time loving someone and walk away without feeling like a piece of you has gone with them. We talked once or twice after that, logistic stuff mostly. Then, after about a month, complete silence. I went through all the typical phases of a breakup. Some days, I felt empowered, like I'd taken back control of my life. Other days, I felt like a villain, wondering if I should have compromised just a little more. There were nights I lay in bed questioning whether I'd made the wrong choice, especially when I thought about his illness. What if he really doesn't have much time? What if I was his only shot at fatherhood? But every time I played that tape to the end, I came back to the same realization. Even if I'd said yes to kids, yes to everything he wanted, I would have been doing it from a place of fear, not alignment. And that's not the energy I want to bring child into. Or myself. Since then, I've been doing a lot of healing. Therapy has helped. Long walks through the city, journaling, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected while wrapped up in my relationship. I even signed up for a German language course because, yes, I'm still living in Berlin, and it's been a surprisingly fun distraction. I'm still not fluent, but I can confidently order coffee and yell at cyclists, so that's something. I also started thinking more seriously about what I want long-term, not just in relationships, but in life. I've realized that I don't actually need someone who wants exactly the same things as me. Just someone who respects what I need and doesn't treat my values like obstacles to get around. I've gone on a couple dates, nothing serious, just dipping my toes in. One guy was charming but said he doesn't believe in monogamy, so that was a quick no. Another seemed great until he casually mentioned he still lives with his ex for financial reasons. Yeah, dating is still dating, but I don't feel desperate. I don't feel broken. I feel clear, and that's something I haven't felt in a long time. As for my ex, we haven't spoken since he left. But last week, I got a message from a mutual friend. Apparently, he's dating someone new. She's younger, and from what I hear, very sweet. She wants children, and according to the friend, doesn't really care about getting married. I'll admit, I felt a weird twist in my stomach reading that. Like, wow, he really did find someone who would say yes to what I wouldn't. But surprisingly, I didn't feel jealous or bitter, just at peace. If that woman gives him what he's looking for, and if they build a happy life together, then I'm genuinely glad for him. I still care about him. I always will. But I no longer feel responsible for meeting needs that clashed with my boundaries. And if I'm being totally honest, I feel proud of myself because I didn't betray myself to keep a man. I didn't twist my values into something more palatable. I didn't settle for a version of life that would have slowly made me resentful. I chose me, and I've realized that for now, that's enough. Maybe I'll meet someone who shares my view on marriage and family. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll adopt a child someday. Or maybe I'll be the cool aunt with an extensive wine collection and too many frequent flyer miles. I'm open. I'm curious. But I'm no longer waiting for my life to start once someone else validates it. I'm living it now. So thank you, Reddit, for listening when I needed a place to process, for offering wisdom when I was questioning myself, and for reminding me that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors to the life you actually want. And no, I'm still not the age. I'm just a woman who finally learned to stop apologizing for wanting more.